Joining me now to have a look through the papers in a few minutes is James McInerney. But first, we're going to talk all about your life and stuff like that. You have many strings to your bow, which is great.
I do, yes.
Including poetry, writing, and also photography.
Yeah, I mean, the photography was a big part of my life for a while. I love black and white kind of photography.
I love it so much.
Yeah, I've got all the expensive equipment, got everything.
How expensive? Come on, tell me the truth.
Tell
me the truth.
Yeah, we're cooking thousands, yeah.
But the thing is, I have a radio studio in my house. I mean, I've spent a lot of money on it. If you have a passion for something, you're sort of prepared to push the boat out of it, aren't you?
I did start off on that, and then the poetry side kind of pushed that to the side, but I still do take photos, and I really enjoy it, but kind of poetry is taken over now. So that's just kind of the way it's gone. Unfortunately,
there's something. Unfortunately, but you've got all the stuff.
Okay, yes.
But do you enjoy watching black and white films and things like that?
Yes, my dad loves them as well, all the classics and everything. I just think there's something about the black and white that really makes the picture.
I love it.
Yes.
It's something, it's quite an artistic style. And have you seen the film The Artist?
I haven't, no.
Oh, it's I must say, you've got to watch it, because it's kind of like a new version of how black and white films were made. So it's kind of like a modern take on the classic old black and white films.
And black and white just stands out from the page, doesn't it?
Amazing.
Immediately. So I just kind of love, that's my thing, I love black and white photography.
Well, is that partly why you're into poetry so much? Because actually words tend to be black and white on a page. It's kind of it's all about what the words mean rather than kind of being dressed up in anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing in about 98, and I kind of write to music. So when you watch that film and that scene comes, when the music comes, and it makes that end scene, that's how I've always I took the music and used it and started writing myself, and that's kind of how I've done it over the years. So I only write to music. So
does that mean that you have the best playlist of all time?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of film scores.
I was going to say, what sort of films do you...
Pride and Prejudice, Keira Knightley one.
Oh, yes. Classic.
Yeah, classic. Just amazing soundtrack on that. And I've just got so many soundtracks that I've gone into iTunes and kind of brought them all and downloaded them and listen on my iPod and walk around and write.
Let me tell you something you might like to know then, that my dad is a session musician for films, and he is in most film orchestras playing the music.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, for example, Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter, or I don't think he did Pride and Prejudice. I'm trying to think what he did. Skyfall.
Did he?
All that sort of thing. So that you've probably got a bit of a CD with him on it somewhere, which is quite funny.
I just love the soundtrack. I love the sound, the music when you listen to it, and it helps me to write the scene.
How does that work then? So do you think, I want to write in a certain style and then the music accompanies it? Or do you think to yourself, here's the music, let's see what happens?
Yeah, here's the music, let's see what happens. And I kind of buy different tracks and I listen, and I'm watching a movie, and as I'm watching the movie, I'm listening to that soundtrack and thinking, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And I'll buy it, and then I don't know what I'm going to write about until I listen, and that's how it happens.
Yeah. I mean, you must be incredibly busy. I know you're busy at the moment. Just tell me what's going on.
Yeah, actually, I've got some book signings coming up in Hunsbury Library and Abington Library, one in April and one in August. I currently run, actually, a creative cafe via County Council and the Library Service for 11 to 16-year-olds, and that's in Wellingborough. The next one is the 18th of April, and they run every fortnight, and they're 2 till 4 p.m. So I kind of do that. I do also work with a lot of actors and actresses who voice my works as well, and that's been really fun over the years.
You must have so much fun, kind of, because you know how you want it to sound, presumably. But then also it must be interesting to hear someone else do a take on something, and you think, actually, that's...
I've had some amazing, not only audio but video interpretations of my work, and they've been fantastic. And it takes your work to another level. So it's just kind of takes it from the page and then it's transformed again into something else, and it's always changing, which I love.
You say you've been writing since 1998. How old were you when you kind of started doing it properly? Because I know it sounds like you're keen to get kind of teenagers into writing at an early age.
Probably about mid-20s, late 20s. Didn't really have any background of it, so just kind of made it up as I went along. And that's kind of how it started. There wasn't no influences or anything from school, because we never taught poetry at school. We just studied the greats, and that was it. And there was no influence, so I just kind of started on my own.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because schools do tend to go for classics, but actually you kind of want something a bit more modern. It's interesting that you listen to kind of contemporary film scores as a source of inspiration, because that's something that, if schools were teaching music, and I know this because I studied music at university even, they go for the classics.
Yes, the classics. But we need more contemporary artists, so we need to be studying contemporary poets. And a lot of my books are actually in schools in the UK and Ireland. And actually, last week my book made it to Illinois in America, and it's been added to their catalogue. That must
be a nice thing to...
It is. So it's kind of making it... contemporary artists are getting into schools where children who actually write teenagers are reading contemporary artists. So
I met you may be aware of Clive James, who's a poet, and used to be on TV quite a lot as well. I met him fairly recently, and he was talking and just reading some of his poetry, because he's quite contemporary. He's certainly he wasn't obviously writing the 1800s or anything like that.
No.
But reading someone's poetry like that really touches you, because they're still with us to this day, and it's something very different. And I had a very different experience of poetry when I was reading his stuff. You must find the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't necessarily read a lot of poets' work because I don't want to be influenced. I just kind of want to do my own style and my own thing.
That's why I don't listen to that much radio, and I don't. It is for that exact reason. It's a conscious decision. It's not laziness.
Yes, no, I don't. People send me works and I read them and comment on them, but I tend not to read because I don't want to be influenced by the people. I want to do my own thing and stick to it and not be changed.
Otherwise it's very easy to kind of accidentally absorb things in.
Yes, exactly.
But it's interesting because you don't mind listening to music and letting that be absorbed in, because I suppose there aren't words in film scores.
Yes, exactly. And that's why film scores, there's no words, nothing you can subconsciously pick up and put into a poem. That line actually from that song.
I heard that in Lord of the Rings Part 2.
Yes, so I kind of go with the blank canvas of the music and kind of take it from there.
Have you got any samples of your work alongside you?
I do. I have one I can read out.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just a burst. It's always interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's called Swirling Mist, and it goes, I came across a swirling mist beyond the realms of borrowed time. It lingered in a cloud-like haze and consumed the workings of my mind. For as I stood within its grasp, a stranger in a foreign place, although it bore no eyes as such, I felt its gaze upon my face. And as I tried to turn my head, its line of sight remained in view, for everywhere my vision roamed. So my panic grew and grew, and though the day was not yet done, the darkness came and stole its light, allowing the painful memories from my past the freedom of a second life. For as I fell down to my knees, engulfed in thoughts I used to own, the familiar face of sorrow smiled to remind me of my journey home.
Was there a specific film that you had on, or soundtrack that you had on?
It's probably Pride and Prejudice.
It's funny, isn't it? It's just funny where these... And the thing is, the music you listen to doesn't necessarily... Because the mood of the music might be happy or sad, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you write.
Yes, yeah, and I just think every time I listen to a piece of music, I don't know what I'm going to write until I listen to that music, and that's how it's always been with me. So I just kind of... not make it up as I go along.
No, but that's how creativity works. You just try different things.
And it's worked over the years, and I've been really happy with what I've achieved.
If people want to find out more about your work, is there a good place to have a look?
It's James. If you Google me, it says James McInerney. It's McInerney, and put Wix in there, Wix, and that brings up my website, which is everything I've ever done over the years.
Oh, brilliant. And you can have a look at other...
Buy the books from there, you can read my poems, you can see all the media stuff I've done and everything else.
Alongside me is James McInerney, who we heard about, of course, author, photographer a bit, but now much more poetry is your thing.
Yep.
And again, if anyone wants to have a look at your works, it's just have a quick search for James McInerney and make sure you put Wix, Wix after it, and that'll take you to the website, and there's all of your stuff there, which is really good. It's nice to have the archive, isn't it?
It is.
Now we're going to have a look through some of the newspapers, some of the big stories of this week and today as well. And really, one of the stories that's there's been a lot of talk about is something that's I think is being glamorised in a very strange kind of way.
Yeah, the Hatton Garden heist.
Yes, that's what
it's been kind of like, yes, they've been made to look like people out of Reservoir Dogs, really. They've kind of glamorised them, like you say. £60 million worth of jewels taken, although I see figures of 200 million. The number is changing.
They don't seem to know how much it is, do they?
No, and there's a lot of people worrying that had money in there, actually, have they lost? Because a lot of them weren't insured to probably the maximum amount they had in there. And there's a lot of people worried, and it's a bit of it is all over the papers. It's in every single paper. It's become quite sensationalised, really.
There's been a lot made about the access that they managed to get to the building, and I know that people are saying, well, there must be inside information. This must be an inside job, because they knew, if you see some of the CCTV footage, it appears that they know where the cameras are.
Yes.
They are supposed to have abseiled down a lift shaft.
Yes.
In order to get access. They had specific, the exact kind of drill that you would need to get through 2 metres of concrete and reinforced doorway. And then apparently now we hear that they were all wearing high-vis vests.
Yeah, I mean, I think they dressed as workers, didn't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and I think it was organised, and they're saying that obviously they were stolen to order for foreign Mr. Big. So it's obviously well organised. It's again, you say it's how they got in there, how security, what happened with security, and everything. And like you said, they've sensationalised it like a movie.
Well, it's a bit. What's that one Tarantino film?
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs.
That's it. Yeah, I saw that the other day. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Mr. Ginger, Mr. Tall, Mr. Old, Mr. Strong.
Is that what they're naming them in the papers?
Mr. Montana, Mr. Gent.
Which paper's naming them this? Is this?
This is the Sunday Mirror.
Sunday Mirror. So they've kind of given them names.
Yeah, I mean, they're in every paper, and it's kind of like it'll be a movie soon, I'm sure.
Yes, the great jewellery heist.
Yes.
What was it? Hatton Garden.
Hatton Garden heist. Yeah.
Well, people do always say that you can get anywhere as long as you've got a high-vis jacket and a clipboard, and this kind of proves that
works
point.
Really well. Yeah. And they've took a lot of money.
The other point I wanted to make is I know that obviously having jewellery and your belongings taken is extremely frustrating, but the other thing that people are saying is that a lot of this jewellery wasn't insured, not just jewellery, a lot of these things in the boxes weren't insured because they were hiding it from the taxman.
Yes.
So they weren't declaring it because they wanted to stash some money away in a safe deposit box.
Yes.
And that's why they don't really know the true value of what's been stolen.
And I think they're probably the people that turned up first to find out if their boxes had been opened.
Exactly.
And they were all down there waiting outside, and they were told nothing, so they were a bit in a blind panic, really, as to if their possessions had been stolen, and probably ones, like you say, that weren't insured.
Yes. So it's a fascinating story, but I do feel like it is being glamorised, but then I suppose it will be, because, I mean, when was the last time something like this happened?
Yes, and it will be in history, and, it's probably one of the biggest £60 million. Yes, yeah, so there you go.
It's a big weekend of sport as well. I mean, so much happening.
Yeah, Grand National, obviously.
Did you take part in any? Was there any office sweepstakes, or did you?
I didn't this year. No, I was busy doing something else. But it was big, wasn't it? And it was also the favourite didn't win, which probably a lot of people lost money.
Well, the bookies are certainly pleased.
Yes,
you hear this thing? They stood to lose. I think there was a Chris Edgerton, who does sport, was telling me on Friday. He said that £150 million had been bet, and a third of all money that was bet was on AP McCoy.
Yes.
And if his horse Shut the Front Door had won, then the bookies would have lost $50 million.
He was a 6-1 favourite actually at the time. Yes.
Amazing. So, it's just amazing.
But the 25-1 favourite actually won it. So
what was it called again?
It was Many Clouds.
Yeah, Many Clouds.
Leighton Aspel.
Very good.
So he's a happy man, and it's his second win in a row. Actually, his second Grand National, and he's won.
I wonder if next time there'll be a little bit more money.
His odds will be better. Yeah, his odds will be better anyway.
It's also just worth mentioning that a lot of other sporting actions happening. The Chinese Grand Prix, for example. If you don't want to know the result, don't listen. But Lewis Hamilton took it away again, so great result. The Oxford-Cambridge boat race as well.
The boat race as well took place, and also sport-related, Andy Murray's wedding.
Yeah, talk to me about Andy Murray's wedding. What papers are reporting this? Probably all of them?
All of them, but the big one was the Sun, and they focused actually on the fact that the weather was bad.
Right.
Because there's very interesting pictures of all the dresses being blown up in the air.
Oh, okay, so the Sun's interested in that.
Yeah, he got married in Dunblane, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of his where he grew up, isn't it?
Yeah, Kim Sears was whom he married. And so the weather was really bad. Gales, storms, his umbrellas all broken and everything. So they focused on that side of the things. But actually, his press photographer, Gordon Jack, 40, actually was at the rehearsal and died of a suspected heart attack.
Goodness.
Yes.
That's not something you hear happening.
And they focused on that as well, which I thought was a bit, so it was a weird way they looked at the story, the Sun.
Because
anyway.
that's a very strange way of reporting it.
Yes, they made it more kind of a jokey kind of thing with the bad weather and the dresses blowing up. There's loads of pictures of that, so it was a bit weird.
Do you think that his speech would have been inspiring, or do you think that it would have
We would have quoted, yes, a great, a Scottish great.
As who's a famous tennis player? As Tim Henman once said. God, or Boris, what's his face? Yeah.
But as normal, there was loads of celebrities there, and it was a busy weekend for sports. So
absolutely.
It was choose which one you wanted to be at. Really, was it Andy Murray's wedding, or was it the national,
the Grand National, or was it the boat race?
Yes, exactly.
It's also worth saying about the boat race, it was a historic day for the women's boat race because it was finally and quite rightly held on the same course. The race was over the same distance as well, and it was given TV coverage, and it was just before the men's race, so it was very much sort of pushed up the running order, because it used to be completely a different day. It used to be at Henley. It used to be totally separate things.
So they're changing things up there, are they?
Yeah. So it's going to be on the same day. Well, it has been on the same day for the first time this year.
That's good.
So it's very good. And we go on. I mean, something that's dominated the papers, and it will continue to dominate the papers, I suspect, is the old Elezione.
Yes, it's May the 7th. So obviously, every paper is now filled with promises by party leaders, all wanting your vote on that day, and all fighting, to discredit every other party, and that's just the norm. I think people are used to it. I think if you're a voter, if you do vote, you've got to know which party you want to vote for, and look beyond the newspapers and look beyond everything, and kind of that's how you're going to vote.
What about the sort of policies versus personalities thing? Because people like personalities, it's human nature, but isn't it more important to vote for a policy?
It is, but not in today's current. If somebody's wearing something silly or doing something silly, that takes precedent over their policies, really, and that sometimes people do vote that way for a personality as opposed to a policy, and I think that's wrong, but it's just the way we are. One of
the most read stories on the BBC News website this week was about Nigel Farage's coat.
Ah, yes.
I mean, that's the sort of thing I mean. So people are kind of more interested in what people are wearing, if they're drinking, for example, what their past was. Do you think that that's kind of how we are going to be kind of acceptable?
Well, I think it kind of happens up to the run-up to the election, people are interested. But on the day, I think people focus in on seriousness of it, and I hope they do, and choose the right candidate. I mean, we have stories like that, like you say, but when it comes down to the actual ticking the box on the day, I think people kind of get their game head on and think, okay,
the game head is on.
Forget what you've seen in the newspapers and everything, and now go with what you think is right. And I think that will hopefully happen.
James McInerney is our newspaper reviewer today. Thank you for having a look through them for us.
That's okay.
I know there's lots of other stuff we could have talked about.
Yes,
as well.
there's a lot.
And just a reminder again, if you want to have a look at any of James's work, any of the poetry, any of the writing, and of course your books are available at the moment.
Yeah,
so
they are.
Definitely worth checking out. It's James McInerney. Just type it into the internet. To be honest, it's spelled MC and then it's INERNEY. And then if you're searching online, make sure you put Wix, WIX afterwards.
Or poetry.
Yes,
it comes up. Yeah, it all happens.
James, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in today and looking through.